people by his right.
Dominus vobiscum.
He then turns back to the altar by his left,
Oremus.
whilst opening and rejoining his hands and bowing his head to the cross. Then with his hands joined, he reads aloud the offertory verse. The celebrant takes the veil of the chalice with both hands and gives it to the server to fold. Laying his left hand palm downwards on the altar, he takes the chalice at the node with his right hand and places it outside the corporal towards the epistle side. If a ciborium is to be consecrated, the celebrant uncovers it. Then he takes the pool off the paten with his right hand and places it against the corner of the main altar card. He takes the paten with the host, and with both hands holds it over the middle of the corporal at the height of his breast. He raises his eyes to the crucifix and immediately lowers them upon the host.
Suscipe sancte pater omnipotens et in Deus, anc immaculatam ostiam, quam ego indenius famulus tuus, offero tibi Deo meo vivot vero, pro innumerabilibus peccatis et offensionibus et negligentis meis, et pro omnibus circumstantibus, et pro omnibus fidelibus Christianis vivis et quae defunctis, ut mihi et illis proficiat ad salutem in vitam aeternam. Amen.
Having finished the prayer, the celebrant, holding the paten between his hands, traces the sign of the cross with it in straight and equal lines over the corporal. He then inclines the paten towards the plane of the altar and allows the host to slip into the middle of the corporal. With his right hand, he puts the paten under the middle fold of the corporal on the epistle side. If there is a ciborium, the celebrant covers it. The celebrant, taking the chalice in his left hand at the node, goes to the epistle corner. He wipes the inside of the chalice with the purificator. Placing the chalice briefly on the altar, he folds the purificator in two over the thumb of his left hand. He takes the wine cruet and silently pours some wine into the chalice. He makes a small sign of the cross over the water cruet held by the server, saying, taking the purificator and wrapping it around his right index finger, he wipes away any detached drops of wine or water adhering to the side of the chalice. He then places the chalice with his left hand near to the corporal. He puts the purificator with his right hand over the part of the paten which is uncovered. He takes the chalice by the node in his right hand, supporting the foot of the chalice with his left. He raises it in a straight line over the corporal, keeping the chalice at eye level. He looks up at the cross and says,
Oferimus tibi Domine calicem salutaris tuam de precates clementiam, ut in conspectu divine majestatis tue, pro nostra et otius mundi salute commodore suavitatis ascendat. Amen.
Having finished the prayer, he lowers the chalice and makes a sign of the cross with it. He then places the chalice on the corporal some distance behind the host. Keeping his left hand on the foot of the chalice, he takes the pool and covers the chalice. He will do this each time he covers or uncovers the chalice. With his hands joined as usual on the edge of the altar,
In spiritu humilitatis et in animo contrito suscipiamur a te Domine, et sic fiat sacrificium nostrum in conspectu tuo odie, ut placiat tibi Domine Deus.
he then says the prayer,
Veni sanctificator omnipotens et in Deus, et benedic hoc sacrificium tuo sancto Domini preparatum.
Let us have another look at this. Standing erect, he opens his hands, raises them to the height of the shoulders, and raises his eyes to the cross. Immediately he lowers his hands, joining them before his breast. Keeping his left hand on the corporal,
Et benedic hoc
he makes the sign of the cross over both the chalice and the host. Each time the priest blesses the oblata, he first joins his hands together and places his left hand palm downwards on the altar. For the consecration, his left hand is laid on the altar outside of the corporal. After the consecration on the corporal, the priest follows the instructions which are given in the Missal. These indicate when he should make the sign of the cross over both chalice and host together, and when he should make a sign of the cross over each of them separately.
Veni sanctificator omnipotens et in Deus, et benedic hoc sacrificium tuo sancto Domini preparatum.
He washes the tips of the thumb and forefinger of both hands.
Domine dilexi decorem domus tue et locum habitationis gloriae tue. Ne perdas cum impeis Deus anima meam et converis sanguinum vita meam in corum manibus iniquitate sunt extera eorum repleta es moneribus. Ego tem in innocentiam et in Christus sum, redime me et miserere mei.
At the Gloria Patri, he bows his head towards the cross.
Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
He raises his eyes to the cross and immediately lowers them again. Placing his fingers as usual on the front edge of the altar, he bows moderately and says silently,
Suscipe Sancta Trinitas concoblationem quam tibio feremus ob memoriam passionis resurrectionis et ascensionis Iesu Christi Domini nostri, et in honorem Beate Mariae Semper Virginis et Beationis Baptiste, et Sanctorum Apostolorum Petri et Pauli et Istorum et Omnium Sanctorum, utilis proficiat ad honorem nobis autem ad salutem, et illi pro nobis intercedere linentur in celis, coro memoriam agimus in terris, per iudem Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen.
Having concluded this prayer, he kisses the altar, joins his hands again, and turns towards the people. With his eyes cast down, he extends and joins his hands, as he does when he says Oremus, saying,
Orate fratres, ut meum.
Completing the circle, he turns to the altar by the Gospel side.